في محافظة حلب، وتم زراعة هذه المساحات.
قيام قوات الاحتلال الأمريكي ولا سيما الموجودة في قاعدة التنفيذ اللاشرعية بتسهيل عبور إرهابيي داعش والتغطية على تحركاتهم في مناطق البادية السورية. ويقوم الجيش العربي السوري بالتعاون مع الأصدقاء والحلفاء بملاحقة فلول التنظيم الإرهابي في تلك المناطق، حيث تمكن من القضاء على العشرات منهم وتدمير أسلحتهم ومعداتهم.
مليار و465 مليون ليرة سورية
التي تستهدف زعزعة الأمن ونشرها على وقوفهم بكل حزم وثبات إلى جانب سوريا. تواصل قوات الاحتلال التركي إدخال تعزيزات عسكرية إلى المناطق التي تحتلها وإنشاء نقاط مراقبة جديدة في انتهاك لسيادة الدولة السورية وخروج صارخ عن اتفاق سوتشي. ونتيجة لعدم التزام النظام التركي بالاتفاق، فقد تحولت إدلب إلى ساحة للتنظيمات الإرهابية التكفيرية. جريمة قطع المياه بشكل متكرر عن مدينة والمفخخات بأنواعها كافة، حيث بلغ
3 هكتار في محافظة حلب، وتم زراعة هذه المساحات.
قيام قوات الاحتلال الأمريكي ولا سيما الموجودة في قاعدة التنفيذ اللاشرعية بتسهيل عبور إرهابيي داعش والتغطية على تحركاتهم في مناطق البادية السورية. ويقوم الجيش العربي السوري بالتعاون مع الأصدقاء والحلفاء بملاحقة فلول التنظيم الإرهابي في تلك المناطق، حيث تمكن من القضاء على العشرات منهم وتدمير أسلحتهم ومعداتهم.
مليار و465 مليون ليرة سورية
التي تستهدف زعزعة الأمن ونشرها على وقوفهم بكل
C'est bon ça? T'as vérifié des... Tu valides, je sais pas. Je peux dire non, je me suis... Oui. Par contre, du coup...
good, what is it? Whatever it is. More than 70 million doses have been administered. Less than 20,000 of these on the African continent. A global immunity gap puts everyone at risk. Vaccine nationalism is an economic as well as a moral failure. While every country has the right and the duty to protect its own people, no country can afford to neglect the rest of the world. We must close the funding gap, ramp up vaccine production by making licenses widely available and sharing technology, and get doses into the arms of all who need them, starting with health workers and those most at risk around the world. We need a global vaccination campaign to deal with a global pandemic. First, the distribution of vaccines for COVID-19. In today's world, self-interest cannot be separated from solidarity. The global economy is made up of an intricate web of transactions between developed and developing countries. While the pandemic continues to disrupt supply chains, developed countries will not make a full recovery.
English. The Secretary General makes some opening remarks, and then he will be...
The recovery from the pandemic must embrace renewable energy and green and resilient infrastructure. We have an opportunity to end our senseless war on nature and start the healing process. At 5 minutes to midnight, governments are finally starting to listen to scientists, businesses, cities, academia, and in particular the young people who have been global leaders on this issue. Now we need to build on that momentum. The crisis triggered by COVID-19 is not some kind of black swan event. It was and threatening the effectiveness of current vaccines and diagnostics, prolonging. Every country, city, financial institution and company needs to adopt credible plans for transitioning to net zero emissions by 2050 and take decisive action now to put themselves on the right path. Countries must review their national determined contributions before COP26 in Glasgow to cut globally greenhouse gas emissions by 45% by 2030 compared with 2010 levels. Willing to ask.
I think
Let me just put my glasses and pick the pen.
I think they are willing to ask. Valeria, you're in Correspondents Association.
But all vaccinations were postponed 1 week. So, but my time came. I'm going to do it in a school.
Today, we face a pandemic paradox. Vaccines, on the one hand, offer remarkable hope. On the other hand, newly emerging variants of concern are presenting greater uncertainty and risk. Continued high rates of transmission and emerging COVID-19 variants of concern, however, have raised the urgency of the task to vaccinate priority groups. The increasing expectation of science and vaccine development, production, and equitable distribution is not being met as fast as we would all like. This paradox, where communities sense an end is in sight with vaccine, but at the same time are called to adhere to restrictive measures in the face of a new threat, is causing tension, angst, fatigue, and confusion. This is completely understandable in these circumstances. Let us not forget the lessons we have learned so harshly. Opening and closing, locking down and opening up rapidly is a poor strategy. The introduction and gradual lifting of measures based on epidemiological criteria remains our best option to allow economies to survive and minimize collateral effects. Our approach must be measured, it must be restrained. In the face of new, more transmissible variants of the virus, we will need to keep our guard up. This is the time we must draw on every reserve of patience and resilience to tolerate and adhere to the necessary measures that protect our health systems from collapsing under waves of a more transmissible virus. Today, we face a pandemic paradox. Vaccines, on the one hand, offer remarkable hope. On the other hand, newly emerging variants of concern are presenting greater uncertainty and risk. Continued high rates of transmission and emerging COVID-19 variants of concern, however, have raised the urgency of the task to vaccinate priority groups. The increasing expectation of science and vaccine development, production, and equitable distribution is not being met as fast as we would all like. This paradox, where communities sense an end is in sight with vaccine, but
Ben bu işe başlarken hiçbir eğitimim yoktu. Hala da eğitim almadım. Ama kendimi bu doğrultuda geliştirdim çünkü sürekli çiziyorum. Ben daha öncesinde yani küçükken gördüğüm şeyleri çizebiliyordum. Hani geçmişten gelen böyle bir birikimim var. 2015 yılında bir kahve markasının kullanılmış karton bardağına onun zevklerini yansıtan bir çizim yaparak hediye ettim ve kendisi çok beğendi.
Çin şeyi de iyi oldu. Çin, her zaman Çin şeyi ister.
Evrensel bir dil oluşturdum kendime. Yani çöpe atılan şeyler, herkesin bildiği çöpe atılan şeyleri ben sanatsal bir amaçla değerlendirip gezdiğim yerlerdeki popüler simgeleri çizerek insanlara sunuyorum. Çin'i görmeyi çok istiyorum. Yani daha önce Japonya'ya ve Güney Kore'ye gittim. Kültürel bakımdan ve uygarlık bakımından çok eski bir ülke Çin. Yani o yüzden çok merak ediyorum. Yani orada çizebileceğim pek çok şey var. Karton bardak çizerek gerçekten dünyayı gezmek istiyorum. Amacım dünyayı resmetmek karton bardaklar üzerine. Bu hayali gerçekten gerçekleştirmek istiyorum yani. Karton bardak çizerek dünyayı gezen ve dünyayı çizen İnsan olmak istiyorum.
Речные прогулки от компании Rich Flot – лучший способ стать спасителем по всему центру.
Bayağı büyük ve detaylı bir katedral. Risk alıyorum, farkındayım ama Benim yaşama amacım bu. Yani
Soldaki clay
ben bu işe başlarken hiçbir eğitimim yoktu. Hala da eğitim almadım. Ama kendimi bu doğrultuda geliştirdim çünkü sürekli çiziyorum. Ben daha öncesinde yani küçükken gördüğüm şeyleri çizebiliyordum. Hani